Okay. Well, welcome this morning. Pleased to see everybody, so many smiling faces for our spring annual meeting of Essex Heritage. And still on Zoom, but as I said, hopefully we will be in person in the fall. And love to just get us started. I think the first thing we'll do is I'll turn this over to Anya to give you a little bit updates on the technology for this morning. Anya?
Hi, good morning, everyone. If you attended our fall meeting, you are going to be very familiar with the order of things, but just so everyone knows, we will have about a 40-minute meeting with a couple presentations from Annie and from Charles and Dave and Tim Felter, and then we will be moving into breakout rooms. You signed up for a breakout room when you registered for the meeting, so I'll be putting you in that breakout room unless you had reached out to one of us and let us know you want to switch rooms. If you don't get automatically assigned to a breakout room, we'll just ask that you put it in the chat where you'd like to go. You can direct message me. My name will be Essex Heritage for the meeting, or just wait till the end and we will move people into their breakout rooms accordingly. If we notice any noise, just because this is a big group, we will probably mute you. So please make sure you are muted unless you're speaking up, especially during the breakout rooms. We hope that you will speak up and share what's going on with your piece of the heritage area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Dave Reed.
Thank you, Anya. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for being here this morning. And before I get started with our remarks, I want to give a big shout out to Annie and Anya for their recent work on the Border to Boston Trail with the earmarks we're getting. I will give a longer presentation and update, but I just wanted to thank them for their Friday 5 p.m. calls we've had lately and a few others. So now for the business portion of our meeting. The first order of the business will be to approve the minutes from last fall's annual meeting, which we held virtually. And I think the trustees and commissioners all received a digital copy from our last meeting. So when approving the minutes, please state your name before your motion. And so may I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Jim Hughes, so moved.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Joe, I think Joe or Norm was second. Joe Geller, Norm Isler. They kind of tied. So do we have any discussion about the minutes? Any questions for the staff? No, they were really good. And it's helpful to hear everything that we went through last fall. So, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Any abstentions? Any nays? No. Great. Okay. Approved unanimously. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim Felter, our amazing Essex Heritage Treasurer, to provide an update on the from the Audit Committee. Thank you, Tim.
Good morning. I see a picture of a bird. Does that mean you're telling me I'm for the birds? Thanks, Dave. So much for being amazing.
You quick study.
Good morning, everyone. The Essex Heritage is required to have an annual audit. It's called a single audit because of the amount of money we get from the federal government. That audit was conducted this year by Roland Lambelet, a CPA firm in Methuen, Massachusetts. He has experience with working with government entities around the Merrimack Valley. This is the 8th year that he has audited the books of Essex Heritage. The Essex Heritage has an audit committee to oversee the audit process. There are 4 members of the audit committee, myself, Dave Reed as president, and 2 external members. They are Steve DeGuglielmo and Don Bates, both people who are significant contributors to the audit review process. In addition to those 2, the 4 of us, Annie Harris and Patty Hursty from the management team did participate in the process. Next page, please. I'm pleased to report that the auditors issued a clean audit report this year. They had no changes to material changes to make to our financial statements. They had no findings to list in their management letter. And they prepared for us the Form 990 and the Form PC, forms that were filed with the federal and state governments respectively. So I'm very pleased to have such a clean opinion. In particular, I'd like to thank Susan Lippman. I didn't notice if she was on the phone call today. She's one of our newest corporate trustees, and she, as the former CFO, spent a lot of time helping us pull the audit together and making sure that we had a clean set of books. And so thank you to everyone who participated in the process. I feel very good that we're in a good shape financially, as far as making sure that the financial records we maintain are reasonable representations of our financial condition. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Tim. That was great. And as an organization, we're so thankful to be in such a strong financial position, and also to have a team where we have such a clean audit. And thank all of the trustees and commissioners for their contributions that they made and signing up to continue to be members of Essex Heritage. Tim, you and I in the group discussed this briefly, but with Roland, this is his 8th year of an audit. Is there any kind of practice to change firms after a certain number of years or not? I'm just asking this in case others might be thinking the same.
No, that is a very reasonable conclusion. If Susan is on the phone, or maybe Andy, you can correct me, but I believe after 2 terms, which was 6 years, we did look for alternative proposals again, and he was the winning, if you will, candidate. So we looked at other firms. He is very reasonable for the work that has to be done. And we've had CPAs, or have CPAs on our audit committee, so that helps us feel good that he is in fact qualified to opine on our financial statements.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tim. We'll just be conscious of that as we go forward, but he does a great job. And most importantly, you work so well with him, so which is wonderful. So next, we're especially thankful for our support from Eastern Bank, who's once again supported sponsored the Trails and Sales event. Because of Eastern Bank's support, Trails and Sales is able to continue on, and the event will be celebrating its 20th year this September. Well, more on that later. Anya's done so much work on this. So thanks to all, and without further ado, I'll turn it back to Annie for a few minutes.
Well, hi. So thank you, Tim, for giving the report. And yes, you are correct. We do go out and rebid the audit every few years, and to make sure that we have the best auditor and the best price. And the little bird that was with your name, it was the winning photo from the photo contest this year. So I would like now, I'm very pleased to introduce Charles Smith from our staff, who will talk about the partnership grants and the winners this year. Charles?
Thank you, Annie. Good morning, all. Thank you for being here with us today. It's always a really great privilege to be able to work with the amazing organizations throughout the Heritage area, and to be able to support the initiatives that are moving the region forward. So this year, we added access and inclusion as a 4th category to assist in keeping our unique and amazing resources accessible to all. So I'd like to begin by taking a moment to thank the trustees and commissioners who participated in our review committee in the really arduous task of choosing 12 organizations to receive funding. We had so many great applications this year, and I'm really excited to be able to share those selected with you. So without further ado, and in alphabetical order, we have the Amesbury Carriage Museum, who will develop a framework for an ongoing series of walking tours designed to connect our audiences, their audiences, to the nearby built environment. Grant funding will cover consultant fees needed to create the new walking tour and establish a template to guide the development of additional tours. We then have the Amesbury Improvement Association in Amesbury. Their project will create an interpretive signage mounted on attractive kiosks addressing historical, cultural, and natural history and context for Deer Island, which is a city-owned park in the Merrimack River. The project will add attractive split rail fencing to the parking lot perimeter and an entry sign from the chain bridge into the park. We have the Friends of VZ Park in Groveland, who are going to be carrying out their native plant and tree project, which will promote sustainability and conservation appropriate for Earth Day, while also creating a more usable, educational, and accessible public green space for the community. We have the North Shore Community the North Shore Community Development Coalition, who will be using their grant for their Youth Build program, which will be completing accessibility improvements for Lynn Museum and Lynn Arts, including a wheelchair ramp and benches. Also in Lynn, we have Beyond Walls, Inc., who will be carrying out their Taking Their Classroom to the Streets project, which will use culturally relevant public art as the foundation for cross-curricular learning and increased student engagement. We have the Marblehead Museum, Marblehead, who will carry out, the production and installation of a series of publicly accessible interpretive panels throughout Marblehead that detail the stories and contributions of Black, Indigenous, and people of color through history. During the multi-year project, the museum will create 8 signs, at least 8 signs. We have the Methuen Historical Society in Methuen, who will be carrying out their Meeting House Hill Cemetery and Village Burying Ground project, including the inventory, mapping, and restoration of the 2 cemeteries, along with the documentation and presentation of this information to the Methuen community. We have the Parker River Clean Water Association, Newbury, who maintains an extensive 5-trail system. They are going to be adding what are called beaver deceivers to the wetlands to keep them environmentally balanced and also protect the aquatic animals and birds and the overall habitat without flooding the bike trail, therefore avoiding public damage to the roads and adjacent commercial establishments. We have the North Andover Historical Society in North Andover, and in order to become fully inclusive, the Society's Accessibility Committee is developing an accessibility plan for the Caroline Stevens Center. Their first priority is to add an elevator to the 2nd floor, which currently can only be reached by the stairs. The 2nd floor also includes the library, flexible meeting spaces, and administrative offices. We have the Gloucester Stage Company in Gloucester, who will be building and installing a permanent ADA compliant ramp at the Windover Center for Performing Arts. This ramp will provide safe access to the outdoor stage for patrons of all abilities, and they expect to serve over 12,000 visitors in 2021 alone. We have the Salem Sound, just Salem Sound Coast Watch in Salem, who will use their partnership grant for a project-based learning endeavor where students serve as visionary project leaders seeking community input to design and develop signage for an outdoor classroom that abuts a stream and revitalizes a dilapidated city playscape. This will create a place where nature and education are accessible to the public. And finally, in Salem, we have the Salem Common Neighborhood Association. For those of you who have been to Salem Common, the original Washington Arch was built in 1805 to commemorate President Washington's visit to Salem to thank the city for its role in the Revolutionary War. In 1976, the arch was reconstructed to celebrate the country's bicentennial. Some of the elaborate McIntyre carvings were removed at some point, and they will be recreated and attached to the arch. So please join me in virtually congratulating this year's recipients. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the 2020 grant recipients who, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we weren't able to announce in person or digitally because of the pandemic, but who you can find in the linked press release. We're incredibly fortunate to be able to continue supporting our partners and all of the incredible organizations in our community, even throughout all of the circumstances of the last year. And now I turn it back to Annie.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Charles, for all the work that you did on the grants. It was, as you said, a very hard decision. We had a lot of applications and hard to decide among many, many worthy projects, but really very pleased with those that were selected, and really want to thank a number of commissioners and trustees that helped in the selection process. So we're always really pleased, always wish we had more money to give away, but very excited to see the projects that people have going on in this region. It's really terrific. So I also just want to mention that Joan Lovely is with us this morning, Senator Joan Lovely, and really thank her for joining us, and thank her for all that she does to support the Essex National Heritage Area, including helping to get some funding for our Future Leaders program this year. So we have a number of young people working for us, with us on projects around the county, and that is really thanks to Joan Lovely. So thank you very much, Joan, for joining us this morning. I have just a little bit of a brief sort of summary I wanted to give this morning on kind of the evolution of heritage. This year is the 25th anniversary of the designation of the Essex National Heritage Area. It was designated by an act of Congress in 1996. And when we were created back in that year, there were a total of 25 national heritage areas, including 10 of us that came in that year. And now they are 25 years later, there are now 55 national heritage areas. So it's proved to be a very popular program within the National Park Service's system of programs. And to quote the National Park Service, the national heritage areas are places where historic, cultural, and natural resources combine to form cohesive, nationally important landscapes. And when Essex Heritage was designated, the significance of our national story was considered to be extremely strong. As part of the designation process, the National Park Service prepared an extensive 2-year study organized by a special Park Service planning team at Denver Service Center, who spent months in this region doing reconnaissance work. The Park Service concluded that there were 3 nationally significant themes which were epitomized by the Essex National Heritage Area and are very significant to our national history. The first theme was early settlement, commemorating the first Puritans who settled in this region starting in 1623 in Gloucester. The second strong theme was the maritime history, especially the Great Age of Sail during and immediately following the American Revolution, when the mariners from this region established trading empires along the coast and across the globe. And then the third theme is the early industrial revolution, which grew up along the Merrimack River as the fortunes that were made overseas by our intrepid Yankee sailors were then invested in developing American manufacturing. And along with these nationally significant stories, the Park Service study noted that our region still has hundreds of historic sites and thousands of historical records associated with these themes, as well as the geography and landscapes that helped to shape this history. The rocky landscape that was so hard to form, the snug harbors and expansive ocean that encouraged those daring maritime ventures, and the mighty Merrimack River, which powered the early factories. So when I first became involved in the idea of forming a heritage area here, these historic themes seemed really immutable. And the purpose of a heritage area was to preserve these assets intact and tell others about this agreed upon history. We sort of thought maybe the stories might get expanded upon as more research was done, but in the main, the heritage story was something that was not going to change very much. But I'm pleased to say that I was really proved wrong. And in the last 25 years, the way of thinking about our history and our heritage has changed. And it's been very exciting to witness this. Our view of history has evolved. Research is uncovering new information, new perspectives about historic figures. Digitization has made thousands of historical records accessible in a way they never were before. The internet is connecting researchers across the globe. Social unrest is leading more people to demand that history be told accurately and equitably. We are understanding that the support system that enabled the traditional great men to accomplish their daring deeds were actually surprised. They didn't do it all alone, that they really had these very networks of support. We are seeing that some of the problems that are now being felt in society today have been with us for a long time. And by not learning about them, we have enabled issues to fester and perpetuate for generations. So we are seeing historical facts debunked as lies, and unfortunately, we're also seeing some lies spread as facts. But it is a fascinating time, sometimes horrifying, sometimes heartwarming. And within this heritage area, we are uncovering and learning about a plethora of new stories, and we are changing how we look at traditional history. Let me give you some examples. For most of us, I think we know about, we've heard about the abolitionists of New England and are proud of their legacy. But the Black abolitionists, who were very present and very vocal from the earliest times, are still not well known. I think more significant, it wasn't until recently that many of us realized how ubiquitous slavery was in New England. I know that I was not aware of the extent of Northern slavery, including the frequent advertisements such as these, which ran in local newspapers. I was also unaware of the thriving African-American communities on the North Shore, the nearly 300-year-old tradition of Negro Election Day, the flourishing Black entrepreneurs such as Lucretia and Joseph Brown, who ran a successful Black Joe's Tavern in Marblehead, and may be the inventors of Joe Frogger cookies. There was also the very popular Hinton family. They had an ice cream business run by Allen Hinton, who's pictured here, and his family for over 60 years in Andover. The Remond family were highly sought after caterers in Salem for more than 40 years, as well as being active abolitionists, and Sarah is pictured here. Most of this information has been uncovered recently, and a lot of it is due to the research by Doctors Cabria Momgarden and Liz Duclos for Salem. We really thank them for their work. Another example of some of the rethinking or reevaluating of our history that's going on is the 400th anniversary of the settlement of this region by Europeans. When the city of Salem celebrated the 300th in 1926, the year was celebrated with great fanfare, filled with pomp and circumstance and parades, and focused on the glory of the arrival to this new land. And reenactments were particularly popular. But as the 400th approaches, in Gloucester in 2023, then in Salem in 2026, and then spreading year by year across this region, there is more thoughtful approach to what is being commemorated. We are seeking to understand who lived here before the Puritan settlers arrived, how important they were to the survival of these early settlers, and what a brutal price these people paid for their kindness and strategic alliances. The 400th is not just about the start of something new, but it is also an inflection point in our history that deserves thoughtful reflection. Doesn't mean there won't be celebrations, but they're likely to be more thoughtful and inclusive than those 100 years ago. So we're in a period of reappraisal. We're hearing new voices. We are also, I think, listening more carefully or trying to some of our more traditional voices from the past too. And we're finding there's a lot to learn from both the new and the old. And this spring and summer, there are some interesting new programs being presented by Essex Heritage and several of our partnering organizations. So right now, I am pleased to invite three special guests from the past to share upcoming events. We have Reverend Bentley, Charlotte Fortman, and John Greenleaf Whittier. So we're going to have a little presentation now. Take it away.
Thank you, Annie, and good morning. I am the Reverend William Bentley. When asked to say a few words about Salem Harbor and its islands, I turned to my diary, which I've kept all these years, 35 years as pastor of the East Church in Salem. I write down there all sorts of things that I want to remember. Among them have been interesting and happy times on the harbor, walking along the shore, fishing at the water's edge, swimming in very cold water in May, and cruises to the harbor islands. I've been invited to board the customs boat and have sailed in vessels belonging to one or another of my parishioners. I've also sailed with Mr. George Crowninshield, although not yet in that vessel built recently called Cleopatra's Barge. On these excursions, we went to Baker's Island to inspect the new lighthouse, sometimes with a picnic and our fishing rods. We went to the Miseries and smaller islands like Cat and Coney Island, named for the rabbit so plentiful there. We gathered plant species and Indian artifacts. I'm glad to know that the Salem Harbor Islands are still visited and studied and protected by your organization, Essex Heritage, and the trustees of reservations, and people like Russ Cohen, Chris Leahy, and Ray Bates, who study the islands and their reminders of Salem in the great age of sail. Now that you have aroused my interest, I'm going to reread those diaries and to see what I have observed over the years. Perhaps we should meet again Wednesday, August 11th, so that I can tell you more about the islands as I knew them more than 200 years ago. See you then, August 11th.
My name is Charlotte Fortman Grimke. I lived in this beautiful Essex National Heritage area from 1853 to 1862. I completed my grammar school studies while staying in Salem at the home of the Remen family. And here I also trained in teaching and began my first school position. The Remens were tireless advocates of abolition, women's suffrage, and education, and they were beloved role models for me. The Heritage area continues to be a place where educators can find training through programs such as Park for Every Classroom and Teaching Hidden Histories. Teachers can find educational resources about my friends, the Remen family, at Hamilton Hall. And I hope you'll join me, Charlotte Fortman, on a new walking tour this summer, which kicks off on National Race Amity Day, the second Sunday in June. You'll find information about this tour courtesy of History Alive Salem. I'm proud to be part of the heritage of Essex County, and I'm excited to tell you my story.
My name is John Greenleaf Whittier. It's a pleasure to join the Essex National Heritage Commission here today, as I have ties to several heritage area communities. I grew up on my family's farm in Haverhill, now known as the Whittier birthplace, and I spent my later years in Amesbury, at a site now known as the Whittier Holman Museum. My first poem was even printed in the Newburyport Free Press in 1826, where the abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison was editor. It is impressive to hear that lectures and events are being held at my homestead these days, and to know that my humble childhood home is now a catalyst for education, creativity, and history brings me so much joy. I'm told that there are several upcoming virtual lectures, and on April 29th, author Edith Maxwell will be speaking about her Quaker Meeting House Mystery Series, in which I am a regular character. And on May 27th, John Babin of the Maine Historical Society will be speaking about Longfellow, the fireside poet of Maine. These upcoming virtual lectures are free to attend, although donations are welcome. but registration is required to receive the Zoom link for each event. I believe my friends from Essex Heritage will be putting a link in the chat to sign up. I have heard that both my birthplace and my house have been sites you can visit during Trails and Sales, and that this year, Trails and Sales is celebrating 20 years. What a joy it is to explore the many sites of Essex County and revel in the rich history and natural beauty of this region. And this is all made possible by heritage stewards, like many of you, who donate your time, money, and energy. I commend you in your hard work and dedication. Many may be doing this work to honor the past, but much of heritage stewardship is for the future, so that all who come after us can learn from and appreciate this area. And on that note, before I go, I want to share with you a piece of one of my famous poems, one you might be familiar with, especially during this challenging year you've all had. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Thank you.
Well, and thank you very much to Reverend Bentley, Ms. Fortman, and Mr. Whittier. And I love that poem. I think it's surprisingly apt to the period we are just coming out of. So thank you for sharing these upcoming events. Again, these are new interpretations of our heritage. The events are in the chat room, those links, and we will also be sending them out to you. So I hope that you'll be able to participate in some of them. So now it is time for us to go to the breakout rooms where you can share the opportunities that you have seen, I hope, for growth and change over the past year. It's certainly been a different year. Maybe highlight some of the successes despite the pandemic, and also share and learn more about upcoming opportunities.
There's always so much going on in the heritage area. It's hard to capture it all. It looks like that history group is still going strong.
I hope I didn't prematurely end ours. Russ, did you want to say something? I might have inadvertently truncated you, which I apologize for.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm talking to you from my edible native plant nursery, which is actually outside of the heritage area. It's in Weston. So I'm just going to turn the camera around so you can see. You seeing any plants?
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a small segment of the more than 1,000 plants I'm growing here in this nursery. And a lot of these plants are destined for Essex Heritage. So I've got an ongoing planting site at Greenbelt Cox Reservation. I've got one at Baker's Island, and these are places that I also do the wild edibles walks and walk around and talk about the edibility of things. And now that I'm able to further diversify these sites with additional native edible species, I have just more to talk about. So we've already got the Essex Heritage Wild Edibles Day on Baker's Island lined up. It's the first or second weekend in July. And what we don't know yet is whether it's going to be an in-person program or whether it's a virtual walk with me being filmed and then people participating via the safety of their computers. So we shall see how that turns out. But anyway, we've got the date on the calendar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Russ. All right,
Thanks
Annie.
for those plants. Well, we had a lot of fun in our breakout room, and it's great to hear what's been going on and what's coming up. And as I said, as we were leaving that room, please, we're going to capture all the information that you put in the chat room, but please keep sending us your information. We'll put it in our e-news, and we'll do other ways to promote what's going on. And delighted that there's still a lot of programming going on, even though we don't know what can be in person and what can't be, but it's still exciting that there's a lot of stuff coming up, and love to see those plants, Russ. That's fun. So thank you so much for joining us virtually today. I hope that you've enjoyed this session, and that you are going to get out and enjoy this region and this nice weather that's coming. In the chat room, I want to encourage you that there is a link to the match forms, and we do value your time. We do record all the volunteer time that we get in this region. So your time today is important time, and we will acknowledge that as volunteers. So please fill out the match forms by following the link in the chat room, or you will get an email that will also have the link in it. And again, we thank you so much for coming this morning. In the fall, we expect we want to be able to see you in person. Our fall annual meeting is scheduled for September 9th. And enjoy the summer, get outside, enjoy all there is to do here. And thank you so much for all of your support and your enthusiasm of working together in this really fabulous region. And Joan Lovely, I see you now. I didn't see you before. I know you were here, but thank you so much for all that you do in this. I don't know if you want to say a couple of words, but I really appreciate you joining us this morning.
Just wanted to say thank you, Annie, for inviting me, and I really enjoyed the breakout room on nature. I'm not getting out enough. I'm in front of the screen way too much, so that's going to propel me back outside and enjoying so many of the resources, the rich resources in Essex County and from the Heritage area. So thanks for everything. Happy to support, continue to support. And we'll talk about the future leaders. We'll get that earmark lined up.
Thank you so much. And again, Dave, any last words?
No, I just want to thank everyone. Thank Annie and Anya and Ryan and Charles and all the staff, Patty, for all their work on this important resource that we're so lucky to have in Essex County. And thank you, Senator Lovely, for your leadership. And one final shameless plug to get the Border to Boston Trail done.
Yes. Very important regional resource, particularly now. Thank you all, and goodbye, and have a good summer.